All right, today we're gonna dive right in, and I mean that literally. We're talking about a source of energy that's so massive, so powerful, yet for the most part, we've kind of overlooked it. I'm talking about the ocean.
I mean, just let that sink in for a second. We've been so focused on looking up, at the sun, at the wind, that we've almost forgotten to look at what's right in front of us. This giant, constantly churning battery that covers over 70% of our world.
So what makes the oceans so darn powerful? Well, it all comes down to some pretty simple physics. Density. You see, water is about 800 times denser than air. Now, what does that actually mean? It means even a slow, lazy ocean current is packing a huge energy punch, way more than wind blowing at the exact same speed. And that simple fact is what makes this whole idea so compelling.
So, let's explore how this incredible natural battery actually works. It really comes down to two main ways we can try to harness its power. Either through the super predictable pull of the tides or by taming the wild, chaotic energy of the waves.
First up, let's talk about tidal power. Now, its greatest strength is something other renewables just can't touch: absolute, rock-solid predictability. Because it's driven by the gravitational pull of the moon and sun, the tides operate like perfect clockwork. We know exactly when and how much power we're going to get years, even decades in advance.
And you know, this isn't some brand new, futuristic idea. People have been using the tides for centuries. I'm talking way back in the 12th century, folks were using tidal mills to grind grain. Fast forward to 1966, you get the Lorentz power station in France, which proved this could work on a massive scale. And today, well, projects like Maygen in Scotland are literally powering thousands of homes right now.
Okay, so there are two main ways to go about this. On one hand, you have the go big or go home approach. Tidal barrages. These are basically giant dams stretched across an entire estuary. Yeah, they generate a ton of power, but they cost a fortune and can have a pretty big impact on the local ecosystem. Then there's the other approach, tidal stream generators. Honestly, the easiest way to picture these is just underwater wind turbines. They're smaller, you can add more as you need them, and their environmental footprint is way lighter.
So, we've covered the predictable, steady power of the tides. Now let's completely flip the script and talk about their wild cousin, waves. If tides are a metronome, waves are a drum solo. They're chaotic, but they hold an incredible amount of concentrated energy, all created by wind blowing across the ocean.
So how do you even begin to capture that energy? One of the most common designs is called a point absorber. Just picture a big buoy floating on the surface. As the waves roll by, it just bobs up and down, up and down. That simple vertical motion is used to drive a generator, and boom, you've got electricity. Then you've got these things called attenuators, and they look just like what they sound like: giant mechanical snakes floating on the water. They lie parallel to the waves, and as a wave passes underneath, it causes all the segments to bend and flex at the joints. That constant motion powers hydraulic pumps, and that's how you generate the power.
And a third approach is the oscillating water column, which is really clever. Imagine a chamber that's open to the sea at the bottom. As a wave rises, it pushes the water level up inside the chamber, forcing air out through a turbine. Then as the wave falls, it sucks air back in, spinning the turbine again. It's basically using the ocean to breathe and generate power.
You know, the fact that we have so many different designs, the bobbing buoys, the snakes, the breathing chambers, it tells a fascinating story. On one hand, it shows incredible human ingenuity, but on the other, it kind of screams just how immensely difficult it is to try and tame the relentless power of the ocean.
And that leads us to the million-dollar question, right? If ocean energy has so much potential, why isn't it everywhere? Well, the simple answer is that the ocean is probably one of the most demanding and hostile engineering environments on the entire planet.
I mean, the hurdles are huge. We're talking about massive upfront costs. There's the constant, never-ending battle against corrosive saltwater. There's something called biofouling, which is just a fancy way of saying barnacles and seaweed want to grow all over your expensive equipment. And you have to design these things to survive a monster 100-year storm. All of that is before you even figure out how to do it with minimal impact to marine life and run a giant power cord back to shore.
And all of that brings us to the biggest hurdle of all: cost. Right now, what's called the levelized cost of energy for ocean tech is just way higher than it is for mature renewables like wind and solar. And bringing that cost down, well, that's the whole ball game.
But hey, the story doesn't end there. Not even close. Researchers and engineers are working on some seriously cool solutions that are really, finally, beginning to turn the tide for ocean energy.
So how do we get there? Well, it's a few key things.
We're talking about developing advanced materials that can survive for decades in salt water, using AI and smart controls to automatically optimize how much power you're capturing, and, just as importantly, to protect the devices in big storms. A huge one is standardizing designs so you can mass produce them and bring down costs. And of course, getting supportive government policies to encourage investment.
And here's why all this effort is so worth it. Solar and wind are fantastic, but they're intermittent. The sun goes down, the wind stops blowing. Tidal energy, though, it's 100% predictable. It's not weather dependent, it's astronomy dependent. That makes it the perfect partner to create a stable, reliable, and completely renewable power grid.
So the ultimate takeaway is this: ocean energy offers that predictable, baseload power that perfectly complements other renewables. It taps into a huge, secure resource right on our doorsteps. And once it's up and running, it generates power with absolutely zero carbon emissions. It's a critical piece of the puzzle for our energy future.
So that brings us to the final thought. The potential here is undeniable. The challenges are being met with incredible innovation, and our need for clean, reliable power has never been greater. The only question left is, are we finally ready to unlock it